Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Welbrock, the CEO and founder of Leading Women Entrepreneurs, and we have such a special honoree with us today. Her name is Diane Williams, and she is the current president and CEO of the Jbws. And in terms of being a force for change, she has protected the most vulnerable in New Jersey, and I can't wait for her to showcase her story, her hard work, and the mission of the Jbws. So welcome, Diane.
Hi, thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Absolutely. And let's start right where I just said, the mission of Jbws. What's your good work encompass, and what are some of the services that you provide?
Sure. So Jbws is actually the domestic violence organization for Morris County, New Jersey. And we were started back in 1976 by a group of women that saw that there were really no resources for their friends, their neighbors, their family members that were victims of abuse. And so they actually started their hotline and shelter right inside of their own homes. And so, kind of fast forward years later, we really have the same mission that they believed back then. And that was really to empower victims, to really prevent domestic violence, to rehabilitate those that use abuse in their relationships, to advocate for social reform, and also really to get the word out there and educate the community about the issue of domestic violence. And it's really, so many people don't understand the prevalence of domestic violence, but the statistics tell us that 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men, and 1 in 3 teenagers will be victims of violence in their relationships. And so the way that Jbws goes about addressing this is we really have 3 categories of services that we provide. The first is around safety. And so when we're talking about safety and domestic violence, we provide shelter, which is up to 60 days of a safe shelter. And that is a 24/7 accessibility for victims of domestic violence. We also have something called Transitional Living, and our Transitional Living apartments are really where victims and their children can live in fully furnished apartments with all sorts of facilities, laundry facilities, for up to 2 years. And really, they have the opportunity to get back on their feet, whether it is, brushing up on some of their vocational skills, going back to school, trying to find employment so that they'll be able to transition successfully into the community in a safe manner. And the other component to that safety aspect is our crisis line. So our crisis line operates 24/7, and that is actually staffed through both volunteers that we train and also our staff members, so that if you are a victim of domestic violence or you're concerned about a friend or a family member, that you can call and talk about what those concerns are.
I mean, such powerful work. It's really incredible to see how you have really got the entire full turnkey approach to protecting not only women, but men and children as well. So thank you for everything that you've done. Can you describe for us, which I can't even imagine, how COVID-19 impacted the lives of families who were affected by domestic violence?
Wow, super, super scary times for victims of domestic violence and COVID, because the average person who was walking around feeling the effects of COVID, feeling isolated and disconnected from their friends and their family members, especially when COVID first hit and we didn't know what was coming next or how to stay safe. There's really that disconnect from the outside world. So as you can imagine, a victim of domestic violence and their children, they're literally trapped at home with their abusers. So domestic violence breeds in isolation. And so one of our biggest concerns was their ability to access needed help. Many victims of domestic violence can come to us through a variety of ways, but many times it's, the doctor's office, the pediatrician's office, the police stations, the schools, coming through our family justice center, the court systems. And if you think about it, we pretty much, as a nation at one point, shut down definitely as the state shut down. And what we saw automatically across the state and across the nation was so concerning, because there was silence. There was that silence, and you knew that domestic violence didn't stop. But what happened is there was that momentary inability to access assistance. And so we never stopped providing those services. Our crisis line was always open, but people were afraid. They were afraid to leave their homes. They didn't have access to means to get connected to anyone else that might provide them with support. They didn't have any respite when their abuser might go to work, or they might go to work. And really, if you think about it, there was just such an opportunity to isolate that victim even more. And for those who are abusers, because we also work with perpetrators of domestic violence, it's just a nightmare when you think about the stressors that they're under when they're trying to be accountable for their own behavior. And they have the stressors many times of financial situations that came out of this pandemic, the stressors of trying to educate children at home. If you can imagine, it was just the perfect storm for domestic violence to flourish.
I mean, it's so heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking to hear you even describe this, and unimaginable to think about what people in this situation had to go through. And thank God that they had you for a resource. But what did you do to shift during the pandemic?
Well, it was amazing because our ability to pivot and continue to provide services. So we never stopped providing services. Our shelter was always open and taking in victims and their children. And we were always providing on-site services to those in our shelter and in our transitional living. And we needed to pivot so that our counseling and support services, our legal advocacy services, our domestic violence response team, which is really staffed with volunteers in the community that get dispatched to every municipality when there is a call that comes into a police station. All of these services really needed to pivot very quickly. So we first started providing telephonic support when we were unable to do that face-to-face connection for those supportive services. And then we transitioned to the virtual world. And we provided both telephonic and video support to people, whether they were going for a temporary or final restraining order, whether they were seeking shelter, whether they were in one of our support groups, whether they were in a batterers intervention program, because we also needed to continue to provide these critical services during a time when domestic violence and the concern for domestic violence is really at its peak. So not only did we have to pivot in that world of direct services, but we also really had to focus on that community awareness and getting the word out there. So, myself and some of my other VPs on our executive team had gone out and continued to do that community awareness, whether it was through our local Rotary groups or through the Chamber of Commerce and through our corporations and our relationships there. We really had to get the word out that you know somebody who is a victim of domestic violence, and this is what you can do in that situation. Let them know we're open. Let them know how to access our services, and be a support to them and a good listener. And for sure, don't judge on what they're about to tell you, or they'll stop telling you that.
Absolutely. So if someone wants to support the great work at the Jbws, how can they get in touch with you, and what do you need?
Oh my goodness. Well, they can definitely check us out at our website. There are so many great stories about the work that we're doing, descriptions of the services that we provide. If you go to www.jbws.org, you'll be able to look at the types of services that we provide, and everything from the SAFE to the counseling services we provide, which includes a walk-in family justice center, which is our first public face that people can come in right off the street and say, I need help. And then we also have the other component to it, which I really haven't talked about, which is the educational piece. And that is, going out and being in our school systems in the Morris County area and educating our children about what healthy dating relationships look like and how you can ensure that you're in a healthy relationship. And what do you do if you think that your friend might not be in a healthy relationship? And what do we need? We always need financial support, right? So the financial support really gives us the ability to put that funding to wherever it needs to go in the work that we're doing, because just like during COVID, we have to have the ability to pivot and be responsive to the needs of the victims and their children. And so one of the things that we are actually launching next week, which we would love some support for, is our Camp Hope. So by the time this airs, I think that, we might be past our Camp Hope, but there's always next year. And we have a summer camp, which is specifically geared for children who have been exposed to domestic violence. And it is just phenomenal. And if you go to our website, you'll be able to see a video that really showcases what their experiences are and how they walked away from that healing and resilience and hope building experience.
I mean, what a beautiful idea and a powerful movement that you are leading, and it will impact so many. So anything that our organization can do to help, we are here for you. I will definitely be promoting your Camp Hope and everything else that you talked about. But let's shift a little bit on a lighter note, because everybody has been affected differently by isolation in this pandemic. So I'm curious, have you been in touch with people that you normally would not have been in touch with?
Someone else had asked me this question. I had to pause for a moment, because one of the things that I guess I'm guilty of, I hear that so many others are guilty of, is how much time they spend at work, right? So who I haven't been in touch with is my own family. Having the ability to sit down and have dinner with my family, or even shoot out for lunch, because so much of the work that we're doing remote is such a precious gift. So if we had to look for some sort of silver lining in this pandemic of, being at home with our children, and I understand that it can be really stressful sometimes, this amount of time we would have never have had, and so I'm grateful for that. The time that I've been able to spend, with people differently is really my own family, and I've just been truly appreciative.
I share that with you as well. As a mom of 3, it's been just really memorable to be able to spend so much time with them. I've now become an expert in many board games I never thought I would master, including Clue, which is now my favorite one, for the record. But I think that families across the state of New Jersey would all agree with you on that. And, for the families that are in not such good situations, we're praying for them. And we are sending you all the good vibes and resources that you need, I hope, come your way. And it's our mission to raise the visibility for organizations like yours, so that the right people come to you and can make this even more impactful. So congratulations on being a true force for change in 2020. And we can't wait to celebrate you and your good work on November 8th as a 2020 honoree, and can't thank you enough, Diane. It's been amazing to interview you, and can't wait to meet you in person.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it as well. Be sure to check us out. We've got a lot of great events coming up.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Take care.